On July 19, 1989, humanity's obsession with its own monolithic engineering hubris was put to the ultimate test when United Airlines Flight 232 decided to become a physics experiment nobody asked for. Engineers designed the DC-10 with 3 independent hydraulic systems, proudly claiming the odds of all 3 failing simultaneously were 1 in a billion, basically virtually impossible in nerd speak. Just in case you haven't realized it yet, whenever an engineer calls something impossible, the universe takes that as a personal challenge. Nearly an hour into a routine flight from Denver, a violent jolt turned the cabin into a high-altitude dumpster fire. The rear engine didn't just fail, it suffered a catastrophic systemic breakdown. A fan disc, manufactured with metal that wasn't entirely pure, a lovely little esoteric defect, finally cracked under the pressure of too many takeoffs. The resulting explosion didn't just kill the engine, it sent shrapnel through the one specific choke point in the tail, where all 3 independent hydraulic lines happened to hang out together. In seconds, the pilots were left holding control columns that were effectively expensive paperweights. Just in case you were wondering how we got here, without hydraulic fluid, there is no pressurized liquid to force the ailerons to move. You're basically trying to drive a car where the steering wheel has been replaced by a wet noodle. Enter Dennis Fitch, a DC-10 flight instructor who happened to be sitting in first class. He knew they were almost certainly doomed because he had spent his career studying the paradigm of failure set by Japan Airlines Flight 123 4 years earlier. That flight was a masterclass in human stupidity. A Boeing 747 with a garbage repair job on a pressure bulkhead. Instead of using one solid splice plate to handle the load, some genius cut it into 2 pieces. Over time, cracks grew until the bulkhead exploded, blowing the entire tail fin off the plane. The JAL crew fought for 30 minutes, dealing with phugoid motion, a nauseating wave-like pattern where the plane continuously rises and dips. They tried to steer using only engine thrust, but they were over the Japanese Alps. They hit a ridge, and 520 people died because the infrastructure of the rescue mission was too slow to reach the mountainside. Just in case you thought the United crew had it easier, they were now attempting that same impossible throttle-only steering with 296 souls on board, including 52 children flying on a Children's Day penny promotion. Fitch stood between the pilots, manually manipulating the throttles like some algorithmic DJ to keep the plane from rolling over. They couldn't make it to Chicago, so they aimed for Sioux City, Iowa. They had no flaps, meaning they were coming in at double the normal landing speed with 0 traditional steering. They eventually lined up with a closed runway, and despite the crew's heroic efforts, the plane dipped, the wing clipped the ground, and the whole thing cartwheeled into a fireball in a cornfield. The wreckage was a charred mess, yet 183 people, including the entire cockpit crew, somehow walked away. It wasn't the monolithic safety systems that saved them. It was a mix of raw pilot skill, total transparency in the cockpit, and the sheer luck of being over flat Iowa instead of a mountain range. The lesson here is simple. We build these complex, decentralized systems and tell ourselves they are infallible, right up until a single impure piece of metal or a bad rivet reminds us that we are one in a billion event away from chaos. Just in case you're planning on flying this weekend, remember, the math says you're safe, but the math doesn't account for human error. Try not to think about it. It makes the impossible feel a lot more likely. I'm Just In Case. Stay cynical.